Is P&O Aurora a shining star, or is she ready for the scrap heap? Stick around and let's discuss.
So if you're new, thanks for watching. My name's Ben.
And my name's Gareth, and we are going to be covering lots of different aspects of this amazing ship, including, of course, the ship itself, the entertainment, the food, the crew, pretty much everything. So stick around for our honest review of P&O Aurora. So Aurora is the oldest ship in P&O's fleet. First impressions, what did you think?
I really liked her. Yeah,
gorgeous.
Really homely, really nice vibe. So as you walk in, you're in that really nice kind of old school atrium. It still kind of bothered me that the water feature isn't working and non-functional, but if you kind of park that to one side, it still looks impressive as a kind of 3 or 4 story statue.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That hasn't worked for ages, has it?
No.
But aside from that, I mean, aesthetically, from the outside, she looked nice and shiny new. She's obviously had a coat of paint or two.
Yes.
And like the carpets felt all new, everything was clean and fresh. So overall, she looked great.
Yeah.
It wasn't until we started doing the walk around tour and we went on the upper decks that we started seeing a fair few signs of aging, which is a real shame because they had a couple of weeks, and because they'd pretty much done everything else, it was a shame that they left those parts out.
Yeah, and the ship's really kind of geared up for outdoor space. Like there's a huge amount of space on the exterior of the ship for passengers to just relax and chill out in. So it was really kind of jarring that the inside was so nice, and then you get to the outside and suddenly you felt like you're on an old ship. Like it genuinely felt like you had stepped into a 25-year-old ship as soon as you walked outside.
Yeah,
whereas
for sure.
inside it felt quite new, maybe 10, 15 years old, but yeah, you felt the other decade kind of bolt on the second you stepped out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the areas were still serviceable.
Yeah.
And throughout the cruise, they were still doing bits and bobs to enhance it, like adding some more
Deck games.
deck games, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I think it was a bit of a work in progress, but yeah, it was a shame the overall upper decks still kind of felt old and dated. But
Exactly.
there we go. Aside from that, overall, she's looking gorgeous.
You know what? She's looking better than some newer ships that we've been on.
She really is, actually.
So now we're going to be talking all about the cabins, how they look, felt, sounded. So
Yeah.
what do you
Everything.
think?
Oh, you know what? Overall, I really liked it. I mean, when we first walked in, we could tell it hadn't had a reverb per se. But she still looked really good, especially for her age. Nothing particularly looked dirty or anything like that.
Oh, the lampshades did.
Yes, I was going to say
Weirdest
that
thing.
there's a few
Yeah.
signs of wear and tear. The lampshades were a bit stained, and like the bath was scratched up on the bottom. But aside from that, she's been really
Yeah,
well
looks
looked
really good.
after. And like everything was clean again. Everything was serviceable. So you can't really complain. In comfort wise, she just
so
had
nice.
brand new mattresses
Yeah.
and pillows. So we had a very good night's sleep on
We
it.
did. I'd say it's the best sleep I've had on a cruise ever, I'd say.
Yeah.
Barring maybe Virgin Voyages when it was like brand new, because it was just
Yeah.
different. But the mattresses that they've just put in are really comfortable.
They are gorgeous. The only thing P&O Aurora is really missing and really kind of ages and dates her is the lack of amenities, i.e. power plugs and USB sockets. She's not really built for the future. And a lot of people might just be like, oh, don't worry about it, you know, just take a multi-plug as long as it's not a surge protected one, which is true. You can do that, and I would recommend that. But you know, when you're kind of comparing her to other cruise ships, that is the one bit in terms of cabins where she does show her age. She hasn't been modified in that way.
No. When we're talking about plugging our phones in on the other side of the room, because we set the alarm clock, we kind of felt like we had to like jump up and get it because we didn't want to wake too many others up. And we had the alarm kind of set quite low as well to kind of offset that. But one of the benefits actually of having not soundproof cabins. So one day we were in our room, just kind of sat there talking on the sofa, and we saw a small pod of whales through the window, and we jumped up and thought, whales, oh my God, and had a look. And then our cabin neighbours heard as well, so they also saw. So unexpected perk of thin cabins is you might be able to see some whales.
Yeah, I think that's probably the one and only time that it's actually going to be a perk. Really.
I think it's what it was designed for. It's the elusive whale spotting. So storage space in the cabins can be a bit of a hot topic. One of the things that I really loved about Aurora is the bedside tables have drawers.
They do.
Yes, it's not just an open void and a cubby hole like you get on Iona and Avia. So when you put your socks and underwear there, they just fall back out on the floor. Like, it was just a lot more practical, and I think you get that with the older ships. They're just a bit more kind of common sense design features for the amenities. But storage in general, what did you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. The wardrobes are absolutely huge.
Yeah.
And another thing we picked up just from people in the community, so thank you very much. If you want to store away your suitcases, one way of putting them underneath the bed instead of the cupboards is to open them out first and then slide them underneath.
Yes.
I didn't think of that.
No, and the beds are a bit lower.
They are a fair bit lower
Yeah.
than on like Avia and Iona, some of the newer ships. But that is one way around it. Simply just open it once you've emptied it out and push it under.
Yes.
Next, let's talk about the food, one of the biggest parts of any cruise experience. Well, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a fair few places that you can eat completely free, well, as part of your cruise fare anyway. So let's start with the main dining room, the Medina restaurant. What did you think?
Generally speaking, I do hand on heart believe that the food that we had on Aurora was some of the best food we've ever had on any P&O ship. It was generally speaking of a really good standard. The one kind of thing that I did kind of always kind of irk or disappoint me was the desserts. They were always really heavy in gelatin. I don't know if it's kind of like a cost saving measure, so they've taken ingredients out and added gelatin in to kind of literally pad out the food.
Yeah.
But that was the main disappointment for me, was desserts.
Yeah, I think overall they were very consistent. We had a few occasions where like part of your meals were hot and the rest of it was really cold.
Yes.
So a few of those occasions, but generally it was really good. Comparing to Iona and Avia, I would say the main dining rooms were much better than those two ships.
Yeah, 100% agree. Even for breakfast service as well, the breakfast was always really warm.
It was.
And particularly the toast was always warm. So when you buttered it, it spread, it didn't just rip to pieces. So yes.
Yes, absolutely. You can always order fresh toast if you'd like to. You just have to ask for it.
Yes. And I think being British, it's not something we're usually used to doing, like asking for something different from the menu.
Yeah.
But we did find, and we were advised by a really lovely couple that we'd met, it's like, just ask for fresh toast and they'll bring it to you.
Yeah, and it works. It was beautiful every time.
Yes. And what did you think of the Lido grill, another included option?
The Lido grill was okay. So it's kind of like a buffet selection, and you can go along, and most things you can just take yourself, such as pizzas, that kind of thing. Burgers, they do prepare for you as and when you ask for them. And I guess the downside is that the chips especially, they're just served in bashers and they're just left under a heat lamp. But because it's quite a cold area a lot of the time, especially if you're cruising Norway, they get quite cold and soggy. The other thing is, I witnessed this, so someone before me was going to get some food and they literally sneezed all over it. And it's not that well guarded, in my opinion, especially where the fries are, so you can get some easily, and it completely put me off. So I didn't get his fries that day, love.
Glad to hear. I'm glad of that.
Aside from that, for the actual range of food that they offer there, it's a very tight menu. But if you just want a quick snack on the go, it was actually really nice. The pizza was very nice there.
It was. I was going to mention pizza. So I did notice that as we went to the Lido grill for the first time, like the pizza base in particular has gone from a pizza base to effectively like a thick tortilla.
Yeah.
So it does look very kind of sad when you see it. But in fairness, they've really improved the taste.
Tastes really
so
nice.
It does taste better. It was the nicest pizza we've had on P&O. It does just look like a Mission Deli tortilla with some sauce on top is the only thing. So yeah.
And then we've got the Horizon Buffet, which a lot of people, when we've read reviews or watched other vlogs, have said like it's a really small selection. Now, it is true that the buffet pretty much is split in half. So what you see on one half is the same as what you see pretty much on the other half, and it's just to manage crowd control. But I think even with that in mind, there's a lot to choose from, really.
Yeah, there is. And sometimes I've found that if we go to a buffet, there's almost too much choice. It's like trying to pick a movie on Netflix. It takes you an hour to decide because you've got so many options.
Yeah.
Whereas on Aurora, they just kind of have people pleasers. And it's like, these are your staples. They're there, and they're also over there.
Yeah, it gets slightly samey, I guess, after a few days. I mean, we don't eat there that often, but we always have a walk through and just see what's there. And it did look like it got a little bit samey.
Yeah.
You know, it generally is curries, lasagna, a few pastas, and they alternate it day to day. And then you have like a great British one. So a little bit samey, but the options are there. And of course, you haven't only got the buffet, you've got the main dining room as well as many other venues as well to choose from.
Yes.
So I think for an on-the-go venue, they do well.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, so now we're going to go over the a la carte restaurants, starting with Sindhu. So, is it the best Indian restaurant at sea?
Ooh, I'm not sure. I think if you compare them to the other P&O ships we've been on, they rate pretty highly.
Yeah, it's the best Sindhu in P&O's fleet that we have experienced.
Yeah, well, we enjoyed both meals, didn't we?
We did. The second meal, so they have a menu A and a menu B in all restaurants.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we always preferred menu A, no matter which restaurant we were in. Menu A was just better. It was a better fit for us. But generally speaking, I think the quality, the level of service in Sindhu was a lot more kind of intimate than on other ships. But I mean, it was about the size of our living room. So
it's a tiny restaurant, really, really small. But no, it was really nice. We enjoyed it. So, and for those of you that haven't cruised with P&O, it isn't included in your cruise fare. You do pay, I think it's £10 as a deposit per person. And then that's taken off at the end, and the actual dishes are charged per dish.
Yes. One of the other things that we tried in Sindhu this time round, because we hadn't seen it in any ship before, is the tiffin lunch. So this is a chargeable lunch service that you do have to pre-book. It was $5.95 from memory. For us, because we had 3 tiffins, you kind of pick from the menu what you want, so it could be less if you pick fewer dishes. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's my favourite lunch, and we had it on the last day. So I wish we'd have done it sooner.
I think that's one of the advantages on going on some of the smaller ships, because where we've been on Iona and Arvia, they've never offered that before. No. So, well, if they have, they've kept it a very, very guarded secret. So let us know if you have had the tiffin lunch on Iona and Arvia. We'd be interested to know that in the comments. But no, it was a really lovely meal, and in our opinion, good value.
Yes. And one dead giveaway that it was a really good meal. The captain was on the table behind.
He was.
Yes. If you're eating in the same place as the captain, you're kind of happy that there's going to be a good service at that time. So keep an eye out for your captains on the ship.
Next, we've got the beach house. Now, this isn't included in your cruise fare. It is an additional charge, but again, we think it's good value. They charge around £10 per person. Now, most of the things on the menu are included in this supplement, but there are a few things, i.e. the steak on a rock kind of thing, that isn't, and you do have to pay extra for it.
Yes, they are quite clearly signposted, so they're usually in like a yellow bold box, so you can visually see what's included and what's an additional charge. So they do make it very clear. It's not deceitful in any way. It's a very clear menu to read.
Yeah.
I think the food in there, we always love the beach house.
Yeah.
I did think that this one was the worst beach house we had ever been to. The reasons why is, weirdly for me, like the nachos as the starter. They weren't great on this sailing. They were served on a plate, which I found really weird. It's normally in a bowl.
Yeah.
So even like aesthetically, they didn't look as good. But then everything on the inside was still like cold.
Yeah, all the cheese wasn't melted, and the sauces they'd really kind of pulled back on as well. So yeah, they're definitely pulling back on certain things. And
they are.
We tried the lamb as well, didn't we? So the leg of lamb, we were so excited about this.
It is a sharer. They do mark it up as a sharer because it is displayed as an entire leg of lamb, even as a picture on the menu as a leg. And what was actually served was 2 broiled lamb shanks.
Yeah.
And they didn't look appetizing. They didn't taste very good. They were quite fatty. It was a real disappointment. So for me, that's probably the worst meal I've ever had on P&O was those lamb shanks. Wow. Yeah, I would say so, because they didn't look appealing. And if something comes onto your plate and looks grey, particularly if it's lamb. You don't want grey lamb.
Yeah, we wouldn't recommend it.
No. But what we would recommend?
Recommend?
Yes. What we would recommend. Very Jonathan Ross moment there. Is the lava rock. I've never actually had it, but you always enjoy it.
The steak lava rock is superb, and for the price, I think it's an extra $7.95, is it?
Something in the region.
Something like that.
Between £5 and £10.
It's really, really good quality, and you know, that kind of price for a fillet steak, it's worth it.
Yes, so that is what I'm going to be having next time, because it does look and sound great.
Yes.
Last up is the Glass House in terms of paid for venues. So again, they had an A and a B menu. We preferred the A. It was really good, really nice, lovely atmosphere as well. It's like very dark, very like a date night venue.
Yeah, kind of moody, but in a nice way.
Yes.
You know?
One kind of issue I always had is that there was no music in there. So they had, the lighting created a really lovely, like, romantic date night vibe, but there was no music.
All you could
really
hear
weird.
was the sound from like the aircon and the refrigeration chillers.
Yes.
Which is a shame, because a lot of the time it was really, really quiet. It was the quietest venue, I'd say, on the ship.
Yeah.
So when you kind of sit down into that atmosphere and all you can hear is dead noise, it can be really off-putting. Shame. But on the upside, the crew that looked after that restaurant were amazing. So lovely.
Yes.
And the food, the first meal we had was great. The second meal wasn't as good, though. It was quite cold, if I remember right, and the quality wasn't as good.
No, we were talking about it earlier, weren't we? And we said the first meal that we had was definitely a speciality meal, whereas the second felt more like a main dining room meal that was served in the Glass House.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it was a real shame, because we're really looking forward to it, and we like the Glass House. And if you like a tipple of wine, it's definitely the place to go to. On Aurora. But yeah, food-wise, it was kind of in between again, wasn't it?
More hits than misses, but by no means a perfect restaurant.
Yeah. Next, let's talk about the onboard entertainment. So we're not just talking the theatre shows, that kind of thing. We're talking about everything that's covered on the Horizon programme. And yeah, I mean, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, so we knew when we booked onto Aurora that it was a primarily kind of older demographic on there. So we didn't expect the entertainment to necessarily be what we'd typically go and see, like in day-to-day life. That said, everything was of a very high standard. The entertainment team, I believe it was their first sailing as a new group. They had really, really great chemistry together already, so they'd really put the hours in before. We can't fault the production levels, the quality, everything was really good. It just wasn't always to our taste, which we knew when we booked on, so we can't really critique it in that sense. That said, we were never really bored. There was always something to do, always on Aurora.
Yeah, because it wasn't always to our taste doesn't mean it was bad. I mean, there was a multi-instrumentalist, there was a comedian, singers, and of course you had the entertainment team doing their shows as well. I think it was pretty varied. Yeah. And aside from all that, you also had like the daytime activities. So you had like sewing classes, quoits.
Yeah, the enrichment programs,
quizzes,
even cinema.
There's loads and loads and loads, and you can't really argue with it. I think there was always something to do. Whether or not it was something you'd want to do is a different question, but I think the program itself was really well put together. Yeah. It was built, I think, for a more mature audience, which is fair enough because it's an adult-only ship. But overall, I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, they put a lot in there. It felt like the most kind of tailored or bespoke Horizon planner that we had seen for a ship. And we'd spoken with some people and they said they just didn't have enough time to do everything they wanted to do because it was just so packed with like different enrichment talks and different programs and different things that they wanted. So although it wasn't always to our taste in terms of what we wanted to do, I mean, we were sailing through Norway, we just wanted to look at the scenery. Yeah. So we were happy no matter what, but there was always something we could opt to join in on to pass the time. So I can't really fault them in
Not
that sense.
really, no. I think one of the downsides was the playhouse. That is a little bit disappointing. We went to watch a movie in there and they put on Wicked, so we're excited to see it. But honestly, we left half through because the picture quality wasn't very good. It was very pixelated. And the sound system that they were using, the bass bins, they were so rumbly.
Yeah.
Like they definitely need to be repaired.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only disappointing thing, really,
And they
wasn't
didn't
it?
really dim the lights that far. So you were watching a movie like in a cinema, but with the lights on.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, they weren't off, but they weren't on full either. But it was just really.
I guess it's so
strange.
people can go in and out if they want to go and get a drink.
Probably
and
health
that
and
kind of
safety.
thing. The crew were phenomenal in terms of, I think, any P&O ship that we've been on, they were by far the best.
Yeah.
They were very attentive. I can't remember many times where we were waiting long for drinks or anything like that. I think the longest wait we had was the main dining room, which is understandable. Of course, they can only seat so many people in a sitting. Aside from that, they were brilliant.
They were really, really good. A really great crew, and I think it's because the ratio of crew to passengers is so high. There's a lot more crew per person than you'd have on the bigger ships, and when we hear about all these stories about P&O not being what it used to be, we kind of, in our view, because we haven't been cruising for that long really, but in my mind, like, is Aurora a glimpse of what P&O used to be? And then could you imagine if they had that level of service on Iona and Avia?
Yeah.
You wouldn't really ever need to book anywhere else because it's great value for money. And if you had that level of service consistently on every single ship, they'd really be competitive in the market, I think.
Oh, for sure. Like, it was really, really good. We put several crew members down for the Shine Awards as well. So
We did.
yeah, and very much deserved.
Very much so.
And yeah, talking of, did we have any particular outstanding moments in terms of crew?
Crew interaction. Yeah, I'd say Delric and the team in the glass house. So Delric and Sally, they just knew our order. So anytime we went in, we'd just chat away for ages, wouldn't we? We had a really good time getting to know the team in there.
They were lovely.
Fantastic group of people in the glass house. Really, really awesome. And they always knew what we were going to order. They always kind of brought water with us because we like to kind of hydrate as we drink as well. Very important for hangover prevention.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say like they were the most outstanding team that we had.
Yeah, for sure. But I think overall, all of them were great, really. We only had like maybe one or two instances where we thought, oh, they seemed a bit cold.
Yeah.
But anyone can have an off day. I mean, the crew work so hard. I think most of the time they're working anywhere between 12 to 15 hours. So, you know what? If you're with someone and they seem like they're having a bit of a rough day, just go, hey, how you going? How's your day going? And you know what? It will take them from here to here.
100%. Absolutely agree.
So let's talk about the bars on board Aurora, and there's a fair few of them. I mean, one of the favourites has got to be the Crow's Nest, right?
100%.
It's a beautiful venue, and I think that's where they spent a lot of time and money on a refit as well. Everything looked new. It looked almost identical to Iona and Avia in terms of like the branding and everything. She looks gorgeous.
Yeah, really great bar, the Crow's Nest. I think they do have a lot of bars on board considering it's a smaller ship. My kind of critique of the bars is that the menus aren't particularly great. So they're very, very samey. And one of the things we really love about Iona and Avia's menus in the bars is you have like the Seven Wonders and the Treasure one on Avia, where you can get like really nice different cocktails, and they don't have that on Aurora at all. I asked for an old fashioned in a few different bars and so we just can't make that. It's not in the tills, we can't do it for you. Would you just like a glass of whiskey? Okay, fine. But yeah, I found that the bars were nice. They were beautiful venues, but the menus were just a bit dull, a bit tired menus.
A little bit, yeah. The Glass House is probably one of our favourite venues for a glass of wine. If you like your wine, that's definitely the place to go to. But yeah, the cocktails were definitely disappointing. One night we went to Carmen's and they do have a slightly different drinks menu in there, which is good. But I must say, we had a couple of cocktails there and they weren't good. The one in particular, lemon drizzle, it was nasty.
sour.
And like, we don't complain about stuff generally. We just go, okay, fine, whatever. We just won't have that one again. But we'd had it a couple of times on other ships and it just didn't taste right. And I did say, well, look, do you mind just putting a little bit more vanilla in? And he's like, oh, well, we don't have any vanilla. We're just putting vanilla vodka in, so we can't put any more in.
Yeah.
That's why it tastes so bitter then.
Yeah, because there's a lot of lemon in there, being lemon drizzle,
Yeah.
and they usually off-cut it with just a bit of vanilla syrup. But this time they didn't. It was very, very...
It was nasty.
Yeah.
There's no other way to describe it. It wasn't very nice. The other thing was, there were a fair few bars that didn't even open.
Yeah.
So the Riviera pool bar didn't open.
Didn't open it ever.
The
Pool
terrace, the terrace bar.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw that open. Maybe on the
open
first
for sail
day,
away.
the sail away party. But even on sunny days, they didn't open it, and it was so disappointing.
It was, because it was particularly on the sail into Norway, it was a really warm, sunny cruise.
Yeah,
like we
nice.
had a couple of days of rain overall, but it was predominantly a very warm, sunny cruise.
Yeah.
And they just didn't ever open that pool terrace bar again, which was really strange because, again, like it's such an outdoor ship, but this cruise didn't feel catered for the outdoors in any way. They just were not ready to do anything outside of the walls of the ship.
Yeah.
It always felt like an afterthought or not even a thought at all.
Yeah, it was a shame. It is just one of those things, really. But I think when you pay for a cruise, when you've looked at what facilities are available, unless it's really raining or anything like that, they should keep them open because you kind of paid for that facility to be open.
And they'll earn money from it as well, because we didn't have a
Exactly.
drinks package. A lot of people we spoke to didn't have a drinks package, so it was always like a wasted opportunity for them to make more money from us, which is obviously a business's primary goal. So
Yeah.
it's just really, it was an odd choice for P&O.
But overall, the bars were nice, right?
The bars were nice, beautifully decorated. Like that's something, we cannot fault the ship for its decor. It looked lovely on the inside.
She looked like new.
Yes.
So while on board P&O Aurora, we went on the most beautiful itinerary to Norway. What did you think of the itinerary in general?
I really loved it. So the beauty of Aurora, or smaller ships in general, is they get to go to places that the bigger ones can't. So we were able to go all the way up into the Arctic Circle, and we saw places, just unbelievable places that still make me smile and tear up a little bit to a certain extent today. So Andalsnes, incredible port. If you ever see it on an itinerary, I would rush to book because it was just amazing.
Stunning.
Yeah.
It's maybe our new favourite. Olden has always been our favourite.
Olden's got heart.
As we were leaving Andalsnes, we both kind of went, I think we've got a new favourite.
Yeah. Controversial, but yes.
Yes.
But the Lofoten Islands as well. So we sailed up into the Lofoten Islands and just wow, like that was incredible. And we were incredibly lucky with the weather, to be fair.
We were.
We sailed into the most beautiful, almost Mediterranean looking place with snow-capped mountains. It was just really, really cool.
Gorgeous.
Yes, and some people were even lucky enough to see killer whales when we were there. Yeah. It's a really great port.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think the only downside to the itinerary and like excursions, that kind of thing, was when we went to Alison's.
Yeah.
Now, I'd booked an excursion to go on this little mini ferry to go down some of the fjords. And it was beautiful, don't get me wrong. Yeah. The weather wasn't on our side, but of course P&O can't do anything about that. It's one of those things. But it was, I would say, a really poorly designed
yes, we actually complained about it, didn't we? And we don't normally complain about stuff. We're normally stiff upper lip, whatever, move on.
Get on with it.
Yes.
But yeah, the actual ferry boat, it's laid out like an aeroplane, I guess. So you had two seats, and then seats in the middle. Yeah. So if you were lucky like us to get a window seat, that's fine. You can look outside and enjoy the views. But there were so many people just in the middle, just looking around, just kind of going, oh, where do we look?
Well,
we can't see anything.
Until they fell asleep. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
People were genuinely falling asleep because they were like, well, we can't see anything. There's nothing to do. Let's just close our eyes and go to sleep.
Exactly.
And it wasn't a cheap excursion either.
No.
So that was the only downside.
Yeah.
So in general, the itinerary and excursions, everything was great. But yeah, that was definitely the only negative, really.
Yeah, I'd say so. And while we're talking about itineraries and excursions, like we did do a video about doing the excursions completely without P&O, which for the most part we did. We only booked with them in Alisund because it was a very last minute decision.
It was because it was out of season.
Yes.
So the cruise that we went on, a fair few, you just couldn't get on third party because
They weren't doing
they
it.
didn't exist.
Yeah. And then in the Lofoten Islands, we did book with P&O as well, just to have that kind of safety blanket of getting back to the ship, because we found it near impossible to arrange a taxi because it was really vague with where we were actually docking. So
Yeah.
it's hard to arrange transport knowing you'd be going from A to B.
Yeah, so we thought it would be Leknes, which is where we actually tendered by.
Yes.
But on the excursions on the website, it kept saying Bodo, which is further down. And of course, what we didn't want to do was book an excursion and then end up docking in the wrong place. And we're like,
Yes.
we can't get there. So yeah, that was the only thing really where we came unstuck. And also in Olden, again, because it was out of season, we weren't able to get a bus to the glacier.
Yeah. We're
So-
still booked independently though,
Yeah.
and we would really advocate, particularly in Olden, if you are doing day trips to the Lowen Skylift or the Bricksdale Glacier, there's really no need to book through whatever cruise line you're on, because it's always at least half price if you get off the ship and book with the stalls there. So really save yourselves the money and just do that. Check the timings, make sure you get back to the ship.
Of course.
But there's really
always.
no need to ever book an excursion to Lowen or Bricksdale through any cruise line.
Absolutely. So the cruise itself, value for money.
Yes.
What do you think? Was it worth it, what we paid?
So there's a bit of a nuance to this, because P&O kind of are value for money. You get what you pay for. They're a very value for money line. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because we really like P&O. We've never had a bad experience with P&O. That said, in terms of saying, like, are they good value for money? It's a mixed bag, right? Because we booked when we were on our transatlantic on Arvia.
Yes.
And at that time, P&O were doing really generous cruise credit.
Yeah.
So I think for us, considering how far in advance we booked and the amount of cruise credit we had, yes, it was really good value for money. But we had spoken to a couple of people who booked a lot closer to the date that we did, and they had maybe 15, 20% the amount of cruise credit that we did. We never spoke numbers because that'd just be really horrible. But the nearer you leave it to the sailing date, the worse value for money it is. And I think P&O in general, in terms of the cruise credit they offer their guests now, they're not competitive.
No, and that's definitely one thing to bear in mind if you're looking to book while you're on board.
Yeah.
It's always said that if you're going to book a future cruise, book it while you're on board because you get the best deals. Honestly, well, at least on this occasion, that wasn't true.
No.
We got a couple of quotes and we checked on third-party websites while we were in port, and we found better offers and better cruise credit. So yeah, definitely don't take it as gospel that if you book directly with them, then you'll get a better rate or better perks, because it's not always the case. No. So definitely do some research before you do it. But back to the actual value of the cruise,
yes,
I would say it was worth it because the food consistently was good.
The service was almost 99% impeccable, you know? It was really good.
The itinerary was great, and it's a rare itinerary. So many of the ships nowadays don't do it because these ships are just too big. So it was definitely worth it for that as well. So overall, I would say yes, absolutely, it was good value for money.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Well, circling back around to the very first question at the start of this vlog, is she still a shining star, or is she fit for scrap?
She's definitely not fit for scrap. Does she shine? Yes, she does. And is she the best in the fleet? I think that's up for debate in terms of what you're after for your cruise. We booked a really nice, chilled out Norwegian relaxation trip, and she 100% delivered against that.
She did.
Is she the most fun ship in the world? No.
No.
Is she the most fun ship in the P&O fleet? Probably not either. Like, I think we have more fun on Iona and Avia because they're just newer. They have bells and whistles that Aurora doesn't have. So you can't compare.
Exactly. I think it's unfair to compare Aurora to Iona and Avia, but I suppose fundamentally you are going to, because you've got nothing else to compare to. But I think she's great for what she is.
Yes.
However, I think if you could merge them, so if you had Aurora with the bells and whistles of Iona, for example, you know, I'm talking in terms of like amenities, that kind of thing, she would be perfect.
Yeah.
She really would.
Yes.
And Aurora, as much as we love her, and I know she's hugely loved out there, she's not going to run forever because she's known for not being efficient to run, that kind of thing.
Very
and
expensive for P&O to run.
Yeah, she's really expensive apparently, and she's getting older. And as environmental impact regulations come in, I think it's going to be harder and harder for her to keep it going, especially through like Norway and places like that. So I don't think she's going to sell forever.
No.
But I really, really genuinely hope that if they do come to replace her at some point, P&O build almost a replica of her, because she's gorgeous. I love like the back of the ship and all that.
That's stunning.
She's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I just wanted to replicate her, but with modern touches.
Exactly.
So she can run efficiently, that kind of thing. So we keep the value, and also for the environmental impact, but also keep the heart of the ship. Because I think if you make all ships across the fleet these massive, big ships, it's going to alienate so many people. It's unreal.
And we had always heard Aurora had so much love from her passengers, from people that are on there.
Yeah.
There are people that are loyal to the ship, not to P&O, but to the ship.
Yes.
So yeah, we'd definitely kind of say, if anyone from P&O was to watch, like when the day comes when you have to kind of retire, sell, scrap Aurora, really look at what you replace her with. And to your point, I'd love to see a really environmentally friendly, efficient, almost carbon copy of Aurora. Call it Aurora Borealis, you know? Like, just do something to show that there's that connection, and keep those like amazing wings at the back, because they're great for like your reverse Titanic moments, you know?
And actually keep your clientele as well.
Exactly, be loyal to your passengers, because they love that ship. And I really do think on the day of sale or scrappage or whatever happens in Aurora's future, you have a big risk of losing passengers with her if you don't honour them and do something that's as good as Aurora with the new mod cons.
For sure. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, what do you guys think? Let's pass it out to you. Do you still love Aurora? What's the favourite part of Aurora? And what makes it different to all the other ships in P&O's fleet? Let us know in the comments below. Well then guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please do click that like button. It really helps us out. And also, if you'd like to keep an eye out for future content from us, make sure you click the subscribe button and ring that pesky notification bell so YouTube will let you know when we release new stuff.
Before you head off, why not check out our full Aurora series linked in the video and in the description below, or check out the walking tour of Aurora. Make you feel like you're really there.
Yeah.